Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Mariam Nasir Tafrishi, and I'm one of the co-chairs of APA Division 52 Human Rights, Peace, and Global Wellbeing. And today, with my dear colleague, Dr. Gulzar Ahmed, we're here to welcome you to this webinar presentation. So thank you for joining us. Our presentation today is the third part of the series of the Third Culture Kids and Adults, which has a focus on attachments and impacts on relationships. And we're hoping in the near future in 2025 to have a panel discussion about this important topic. I wanted to welcome and thank our dear guest speakers, Dr. Patricia Perez and Mr. Brandon Kerr. Very much. Thank you so much for accepting to do all these three presentations for us and giving your time to us. And I also wanted to thank APA Division 52 communication team for all your support and time you have put for us and being present today, to our VP, Dr. McGrath, and also Dr. Gulzar Ahmed, and our dear team members in our group. Before introducing our guest speakers, I would like to ask if you can please mute yourself, mute your microphones. Thank you. At the end of the presentation, we're going to have some time for Q&A, and you can ask your question in the Q&A section, which you can find under the Zoom screen. If in any case that doesn't work, you can ask your question in the comment section. This is going to be an interactive presentation. So if our presenters ask you a question, in that case, you can ask your question in the comment section so everybody can see those. And then at the end, Dr. Ahmed is going to have hold the closing statements. And now presenting our dear presenters, especially for some of our guests here who are new and haven't met them. Dr. Patricia Perez is an adjunct faculty, Department of Psychology at Adler University, Chicago. Some of her areas of research and practice expertise include mental health and wellness, children and families, international programming and education, career development, life coaching, global mobility and migration, and third culture kids and adults. Dr. Perez is an international psychologist, global consultant, and speaker. Brandon Kerr, Mr. Kerr, is a lecturer at Kingsburg Community College, part of New York's CUNY system. He has spent the better part of his adult life living abroad, 4 years in South Korea, 4 years in Turkey, and several months in Armenia studying Russian language. Mr. Kerr is currently a PhD candidate in international psychology at the Chicago School. Please help me welcome Dr. Patricia Perez.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tafreshi. Hello, everybody. It's so wonderful to see, oh my goodness, some of my students from Oakton College. I have my best friend from 7th grade here. I think that's Susanna. Oh my goodness. And some returning people from our for our webinar. So we are very excited actually to present to you Third Culture Kids. Hopefully you can, oh my goodness. Whew. Hold on, now it's a black screen. Hold on for a second. There it is. Can everyone see the slide, this first slide? Yes? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. So we're so excited that you're here and you are willing to walk this journey with us. Before we get started, I'd like to say again, thank you so much to Dr. Tafreshi, Dr. Ahmed, and Dr. McGrath, and Raphael, who is also here, who have provided support in this invitation to present this third part on third culture kids and adults, focusing on attachment and the impact on relationships. Also, too, I would like to thank Human Rights, the Special Interest Group, Human Rights, Peace, and Global Wellbeing Special Interest Group, through the American Psychological Association Division 52. All of you who are out there who are third culture kids, adults, TCKAs, and our allies and supporters, and obviously you. So I'd like to turn it over now to Brandon.
Alrighty, can you hear me okay? We're good? Cool. All right, so here's a quick look at where we're heading today. We'll start with a bit of background and what brought us to this part 3 of our series, and then briefly we'll recap parts 1 and 2. After that, we'll take a closer look at attachment theory and what it is, why it matters, how it intersects with TCK's experiences, and then from there, we'll explore how those attachment patterns impact relationships. And then we'll share some strategies across different life stages. We have some final steps that you'll be able to use and walk away from, and also your resources. Think of this as a blend of story and science, a bit of a narrative from the lived experience and a bit of theory to help us name and frame those experiences. Next slide. Alrighty, so why are we even having this conversation? Both Trish and I come from this work from personal and professional angles. And as someone who's lived and worked across borders, cultures, and languages, I've seen firsthand how those experiences can shape how we relate to others and ourselves. They can deeply enrich, but also destabilize our relationships. And TCKs, they often grow up in environments where consistency can be elusive. Home isn't a fixed place, identity is fluid, and a relationship can feel transient. So we want to dig into how that shapes relationships, how that shapes attachment, belonging, and connection. And this work, it's also about advocacy, making sure that TCKs are seen and understood not just through a multicultural lens, but through a psychological one too, because that nuance, it matters. Trish?
Thank you so much, Brandon. So for this particular topic, I would say that Brandon and our work on TCKAs really started with this topic, attachment and the impact on relationships. So as you can imagine, as an international psychologist and a psychotherapist who sees clients and does mental health consultation on a professional note, that we always talk about relationships. That is really part of that human experience in a lot of my work. Throughout all of my programming and all of my education and my personal life, relationships has always been my interest. And I would say that really understanding my own attachment style and understanding how I build and sustain relationships has been in the forefront in any type of relationship that I have, whether it's an intimate relationship, whether it's a collegial relationship, whether it's a relationship with a friend, a family member, and students. So this is, I would say, really the anchor of much of the work that we've decided to do.
So let's get clear on what we mean when we say a third culture kid and adult. For many of you, this might be a review. A TCK or TCK, a third culture kid, is someone who has spent a significant part of their developmental years outside of their parents or their caregivers' passport culture. Of course, we're living in the 2020s. We know that not only parents are raising children, we have grandparents, we have aunts, uncles, we have friends, family, foster parents, and the lot. So we're talking about that blend of the first culture, the parent, the caregiver, and the second culture, that host country. And then there's the hybrid that we discussed last week of that third culture that emerges from navigating between them. And that term came from Ruth and John Ussi, American sociologists back in the 1950s. And it's only become more relevant with time. Today, over 281 million people live outside of their countries of origin. That's about 3.6% of the global population. And this isn't just about crossing national borders. It's also generational, technological, and cultural. We want to get outside of thinking of this as I've moved from one country to another country, and more of I moved from one culture to another culture. I moved to a place where the technology might be different, where it's a different generation. And think about it this way: some TCKs, they're digital natives. All right, they're navigating multiple time zones before they can even tie their shoes. All right. They're having to do these things that we as adults sometimes can take for granted. Trish, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, thank you so much, Brandon. So as far as global migration, based on the International Organization for Migration, that was 5 years ago, that stats. But the way that Brandon and I see this is that traditionally, when this was developed in the 1950s, or the TCK or TCKA terminology was coined, it was really based on the lived experience of Ruth and John. And over time, the way that it's been looked at based on our readings and our review of some of the TCKA literature was really crossing international borders, literally. So the way that we like to look at it, and it's very specific to specific populations like missionary, expats, diplomats, and things like that. But as you can imagine, with increased global migration and mobility, that this affects really anyone who is considered an international migrant or someone who just moves for whatever the reason is. And that could be voluntary or involuntary. So for example, this could also be related to populations, asylum seekers, refugees, people who are within those categories that was originally noted the TCKA definition. As Brandon noted with the culture, the way that we also see it, Brandon and I see in broadening the definition of TCKAs is the fact that there are lots of bits and pieces of what does it exactly mean is a lived experience of whatever that third culture is. So for example, I always tell my kids who we have one who's a teenager and two who are adults, some of their language, the way that they talk is not how I talk. What I understand in words, and I'm sure Brandon knows this based on his dissertation, that there is a divide. There is a divide in differences in culture in when we think about things like the rule of language and code switching. Brandon also mentioned that there's a technological divide, right? And understanding that culture where some of us are native to technology, you were born with it, right? And me as a Generation X, I'm an immigrant to it. So I did not have a cell phone growing up as a child. I did not have a laptop. I didn't have any of those type of things. So that's another way of us defining TCKAs. All right, Brandon.
All righty. So let's talk about well-being. Because here's the thing, TCK's experiences are often glamorized. All right, wow, you've lived in so many countries or you speak a ton of languages, but that can hide a lot of what's going on underneath the surface. Many TCKs, they struggle with grief. They have identity confusion, loss. They never quite feel like they belong anywhere. And in some communities or families, talking about the mental health is still taboo. It's still seen as a luxury, something that we often forget. So even though we may seem well-traveled, or TCKs may seem well-traveled, or highly adaptable, or resilient, notice I'll use quotes when I say resilient, it doesn't mean that the emotional toll isn't real. And this work is about naming them and connecting to broader goals like the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 3. We have it listed here. It ensures that health and well-being is for all ages. So we want to make sure that we're not only thinking about the health and well-being of adults, we're thinking about what that means from birth through adulthood. Trish, oh, I'm sorry. Now, as a review for our first piece, we talked about home and belonging. For a second, we talked about development across the lifespan. If you guys missed out on those two webinars, I do believe those are on YouTube, so definitely check those out. But today, we're talking about the impact specifically it has on relationships and how that impacts our attachment styles. Trish?
Yeah, I'm just going to add, thank you so much again, Brandon. I'm just going to add, yes, again, the stereotypes of a lifestyle, but again, for some individuals who migrate or move, whatever home is for them, that sometimes these are involuntary situations based on man-made and natural disasters.
All righty. So when we talk about how the TCK experience impacts relationships and mental health, we have to think about context. All right. My students will tell you all the time, I tell them how important context is to things. So I'm going to pose a couple questions to you guys to think about. When we're thinking about TCK context, we want to think about how old this person was when they first moved. We want to think about how often they moved. We want to think about what those transitions might have been like. Were they exciting? Were they traumatic? Or somewhere in between? Also, we want to think about who was there with them. Did they have stable caregivers? Before we mentioned that not all families are in the structure of two parents and a child. You have extended families, friends. Was there a support system in place? Or did everything feel like it was constantly shifting? We can think about the nature of the move itself matters. Trish alluded to uh, it can be military, it can be missionary, it can be corporate, refugee based. And all of these shape how TCKs form their attachments and form and sometimes avoid their attachments and relationships. It may also shape how we model emotional expression, boundaries, or even trust. So we're not just talking about where someone grew up. We're also talking about the entire relational ecosystem that forms or fractures during those formative years.
All
All
right,
right.
so that's a
Mhm.
lot. I would say that's a lot from our background from our very first two webinars, but we're going to stop here because as many of my students know, this topic, or really any topic, I'm going to localize it in psychology, is not just about other people, clients, other professionals, but it's also about you. I always say that if you're trying to assist or support someone else, you have to know yourself first. Because how are you going to do that with someone, right? And obviously, we are human, we make mistakes, we have a journey, things like that. So we're going to pause here as part of the interactive piece, which Dr. Tafreshi mentioned, where we would like for you to look at these questions and think about yourself as a child. So there we have pictures here. I don't know if you see them in the upper left-hand corner of this is a picture of me. I think I was around 2.5 before I went in the Philippines, before I moved to the Philippines when I was 3. And Brandon, can you tell us a little bit about your picture? And maybe you can walk through a picture of yourself, right? You could walk through a picture of yourself, maybe that, or maybe not, or think about what you were like when you were younger. And then we're going to walk you through these questions.
Mhm.
Brandon?
So this is me when I'm gonna look. I have a screen over here. So if I look over this,
Okay.
I'm looking at it bigger just because it's small over here for me. This I want to say I would have been 4 or 5 years old. This is in front of my house in Brooklyn. That's my dad up there wearing a white shirt and white pants for whatever reason. Um, Something that this picture makes me think about is my relationship with my father and how much my attachment style comes from him. How I was raised, his mannerism with people. He's from Jamaica. My mother's from Barbados. How he interacted with his parents, because we don't think about that too as children, seeing our parents interact with their parents, our grandparents. Um, so, did you want me to go through these questions, Trish, or you just,
I'm gonna go, yeah, I'm gonna go through the questions. But yeah, I just wanted
I'm
to
not as good as you. I'm not as good as talking about myself. But
yeah, no, I wanted you to tell us about your picture. I mean, I could have said
ah,
it too, but
yes,
yeah, yeah.
I imagine I was going to school. I used to love overalls. I still love overalls. Fun fact. Uh,
What
but
sort
yes,
of wearing? Oh my goodness, I just noticed this. We're sort of wearing side by side overallish things.
it
I'm
was the
wearing a
style.
dress.
It
Yeah,
was the
and you're,
style.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But as I was telling Brandon when we were picking pictures, that it's so typical of my core person where it looks like I was answering like like a grown-up back. Like my mouth looked like it's moving where it looked like I was saying something. And I also told Brandon I was sort of like the definition back then, like I was sort of a tomboy. I didn't really like wearing dresses. I still don't like little frilly things. So for me to be dressed up like that is very interesting. Someone else dressed me. Uh, okay. So when we think about these questions are strategic, I just want to say, in understanding ourselves. These are not just questions that we decided on for this webinar. I have used these questions when I've taught this, when I have seen clients in practice, couples work, family work, individual work. So we would like for you to think about these questions. Again, they're big ones, okay? And we're going to give you a little bit of time, and you can always go back to it. And obviously you can use this with your own work or with yourself. And we're going to open up for a little bit too, if anyone would like to share, hopefully in the safe space, any of your answers to any of these questions, not all of them, like one. Okay, so I'm going to walk us through these questions. What is a relationship to you? What is your earliest recollection of a relationship? Thinking about your senses, taste, touch, feel, smell, hear, what was this relationship like? And what are your thoughts and feelings about this relationship? All right, so we're going to give, I don't know, a couple minutes, and then we're going to open it up for anyone who would like to share.
As we mentioned before, this is all building context. When you're thinking about your own attachment style, we have to think about how we got to where we are. This is why we think back. We don't often think about that first relationship that we might have had, or that first thing that we call a relationship. You know, we have relationships as children, we have relationships with our parents, but what's the first one that you identified as a formal relationship with someone, and how does that shape our context?
Dr. Perez, you might have to guide us yourself, especially having a expatriate. Actually, that would be a rich one, either you or Brandon. You know, if you say this, because it might help give a better understanding of what we're trying to look for.
Yeah,
And then
this is very, yeah. I'm not gonna, I mean, we'll probably do it at the end, but this is, because this is everybody, your own lived experience, right? And Brandon and I are prepared to share our stuff, but for now, we want everyone to think about themselves as a guide. Yeah. So we're gonna give a couple minutes. And yes, Dr. Tafreshi, I mean, and I must say, this could be years and years and years of work in therapy or not in therapy. So these are very big questions. So for now, though, this is the first step. Okay, so if you could answer any of these questions is a first step. So a couple minutes.
Dr. Perez, this question is for the TCKs.
No, it's for everyone. Everyone on this webinar. Yep. Yeah. So yeah, everyone needs to think about these questions right now.
Not to write somewhere.
Yeah, so yeah, you're gonna write it on like your phone or a piece of paper, like that. Yeah. So a couple minutes, and then we're gonna come back and I'm gonna guide it.
And thank you for doing that, because I think if you just told us, we wouldn't do it, and then I don't think we would have understood
Yeah,
it.
so yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, because when I said you need to look at this, I think my students are probably doing it because they know my style, current students, that what I'm asking is for you to actually do this. So whatever, we're not going to see it unless you want to share, but this is for your own self-awareness, which self-awareness is a big one. Okay, so this is like, I guess, quiet time, as my 2-year-old teacher self will say, for you to pick one of these or think about it. We'll attach the slides later, but for now, this is the self-reflection part of it where, I hope we're all quiet now so that everyone can focus on this. All right, just a minute or two, and then we're going to come back together. And again, this is just a starting point. You don't have to have perfect answers. This is just for you to just stimulate some thoughts as we move forward in this webinar.
It's actually, I have to say this is actually very nice because usually all webinars are rushed. So this is very new. So thank you.
Thank you for the feedback. Okay, everyone. So I would like to, again, there's many of you, and I really appreciate, I see also in the participant list, I see representation from the Chicago School, representation from Adler University. So, and people from all around the world, thank you so much. So I'd like to open it up. We're going to spend 5 minutes, all right, and then move on. 5 minutes. If anyone would like to share their answers or have just a comment or thought about these questions.
There were, I don't know if folks can speak, but there were a couple people that did add theirs in the chat. Mary,
Yeah.
did you want to read
Yeah,
that?
can
Or?
someone,
Yes.
yeah.
There's one saying relocation of a memory was someone I would now consider a mentor. She was leading out in a youth group program. Oh, okay. That was as for a recollection of a memory was someone. Okay, let me start with the last one. One of my earliest memories when related to senses is warmth. My brother and I used to have sleepovers with my grandparents where they would sleep on the floor in front of the fireplace, but also the warmth from how they treated us.
Oh, that sounds so cozy. I could just see the visual. I could see the visual and feel it. Thank you so much.
Okay, so this one, I don't know if it's about earliest or not about parental, so that's why I switched. But recollection of a memory was someone I would now consider a mentor. She was leading out in a youth group program. I may have been 9 or 10 years old, someone who demonstrated care and was attentive to checking in with the youth group members. Okay, so it is still a relocate, at 9
Yes.
and 10 years old. Okay, yes.
Yes, and Dr. Tafreshi, just to orient everyone, this isn't just like your your personal life or your family or things like that. This could be
Okay.
an earlier recollection of like school, or like, you know, moving forward is what I call professional. So it will be it could be anything, any early recollection, whether it's a personal recollection, whether it's out in the world recollection, whether it is, right? But it's very significant. The point here is very significant what you recollect.
Okay, thank you, and for letting us know. I think that's very important. The last one is, I have had many relationships as a child. I know this. I see pictures which proves it to me, but I couldn't tell you their names or what we did. There's a cognitive fog there, and it's not because I would have been too young to remember.
Yes. Okay. Anyone else?
Let me
Yeah, I think, I mean, based on that response, thank you for all of the responses so far. Based on that, based on cognition, most of us don't remember much of these early years, or actually names and things like that. It is around 9 to 10 years old when we actually remember things that go into our senses, or maybe we have just a visual of something from like 3, 4, or even younger. But yes, that's why I brought up senses.
Okay, and then maybe I should read this. I know
Mhm.
Brandon answered it. It says, how might unresolved resentment and TKCAs, whether as parents of new TCKs or in relationship with non-TCKs, impact attachment and the emotional safety of their relationships? I don't know, do we
Yeah.
want to answer this now,
No.
Brandon, or maybe
Yeah,
later? Because I know
yeah,
Brandon,
that's a great question, but
let's
I
It,
think we need to
it
move
was
forward.
it was a little
Yeah.
bit deep.
Yeah,
Is
we
there-
need to, yeah, so the point here, and I know, I mean, I'm already feeling it, you know, I'm a clinician too, right? Everyone wants answers, but unfortunately, what we're forcing everyone to do right now is to step back from asking answers and to walk through the journey. And then, which that's a very great question. And there's no right way of anything, right? When we talk about humans,
Right.
that, because we're going to revisit other questions moving forward. So I think that there might be some answers to that question as we move forward. So we're gonna hold on to that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Matthew, just so you know, I was looking at the question, what he had mentioned about having that cognitive fog about remembering. Trish already alluded to that. A lot of these relationships we won't remember until we're about 9 or 10. It also depends on how long these relationships lasted. You might have had relationships with people that, quite frankly, were just too short for you to remember. When I was thinking about this question myself, I thought back to my best friend from kindergarten. We had the same Nana, right? But in my mind, I can't think of anything from that time. In my mind, we're already teenagers, maybe 10, 11, 12, preteens at least. But I know for a fact that we were best friends from the time we were about 6 years old. But there's nothing there. And that's not to say that there was something wrong with the relationship. We just tend not to remember these things. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't think too deeply about that. There can be things there, but I wouldn't think too deeply about that fog because we were children.
Yeah,
But
and again, Dr. Tafreshi and Dr. Ahmad, this topic is like people study this for like classes and classes and degrees and things like that. And so moving forward, and there's going to be a disclaimer here where this is just one way of looking at relationships. All right, this is just one way based on this theoretical approach that I'm now going to be going through. Based on attachment theory, this is just one way, right? So we have to consider things like cultural norms, right? Societal norms, individual differences, what you believe in. But because Brandon and I are both rooted in psychology and also really rooted in international psychology, and we bring to the table certain specific things, this is my area. I am an attachment theorist. So I learned about attachment theory in my master's program in child development in the early 90s. And so I have used this theory globally. But again, you can only imagine what that may look like. So I'm just going to present some of the big key things and really understanding the attachment styles. So if you were here with us, part 1 and part 2, we presented these 3 relevant theories or frameworks to understand TCKAs. We started with acculturation psychology, which is coming out of the field of international psychology. Then the second part 2, we really focused on development, and now we're going to be focused on attachment theory. So who started attachment theory? So in the 1950s and 60s, a psychoanalyst named John Bowlby really coined attachment theory and came up with this theory. Over time, Mary Ainsworth, and we'll look at this work in a minute, in 1969, then she's a developmental psychologist, came up with the strange situation and the attachment styles. All right, so here is an overview. Again, I've taught classes and took classes on this. This is just a very, very short overview. So what is the overall premise based on John Bowlby? Based on evolutionary psychology or evolution, so the nature part of it, we are biologically pre-programmed. This is his tenet, core value, that we are biologically pre-programmed to form attachments in this world for survival, right? We look to someone, our caregivers, our early caregivers, for survival, and also to say it's not fixed. We as humans and infants adapt. We all adapt, right? To people, place, and things, to our environments, to caregiver styles, things like that. However, in the very early years, really 0 to 3, we are looking to these 4 things that make us feel secure. Number 1, we are looking to our caregivers to be predictable in their caregiving style. We are looking to them to be consistent. We are looking to them to be stable, and we are looking to them, therefore, to be secure. Now, obviously, there are individual differences. Obviously, when we think about the TCKA population and all of those moves, this is part of the reasons why, right, that we're talking about this, because much of our moves were unpredictable, not consistent, not stable, and did we feel secure? That becomes a question. As mentioned, based on Mary Ainsworth's work, she came up with a strange situation that tested in a lab 9 to 30-month-olds around the time, really 9 to 18 months, where there is such a thing called separation anxiety. I don't know if you've heard of it, where the child, when they're dropped off at school, when they go to daycare, or they're with a stranger or someone who's not their primary caregiver, they're separated from them, they show distress. So the experiment, which if you Google or anything, you will find the experiment, where in the experimental condition, the mother and the child are together in a room, the child is playing with a toy, then there is a stranger that comes in, the mom leaves, and then upon reunion are then the notes of how she came up with secure and the insecure attachment styles. All right, so I'm going to move on. There are 4 attachment styles. All right, there is secure, and then 3 insecure attachment styles: avoidant, anxious, and disorganized. Disorganized is a combination of avoidant and anxious. All right, so let's go through some of this. And as I said to you before, there's cultural considerations and norms for this. Okay, so what is a secure attachment? Again, barring all, a lot of different things, and over time again, right? Over time again, that there could be changes in insecure attachments and secure attachments based on our lived experiences. So what is this? The child feels safe and protected because the caregiver provides comfort and exploration. And when I talk about comfort and exploration, it is not money. It's not how big a house you have or lack of house or whatever. It is emotional. Okay, it's social emotional. So this is building off of our part 2, which was focused on social emotional development. So there is a bond. Okay, the presence of the caregiver actually makes them feel good. And because they have confidence and feel good about it, and feel good about their primary relationship, they can go back to their caregiver and feel like they will get reassurance and support. And that is consistent and that's predictable. So what are the characteristics of securely attached children? and also securely attached adults over time, you feel safe and protected in your world. You are able to explore because you have a secure base. You are comfortable in asking and seeking comfort and reassurance. However, you prefer the caregiver or whoever is your secure base to be that person rather than strangers. You are able to have long-term healthy relationships. You have high self-esteem. You have trust. You are, for the most part, feel emotionally stable, and you are open and confident in relationships. All right, moving on to the avoidant attachment presentation. So these individuals, right, and you can change. This isn't fixed. You can change over time. All right, depending on, again, that predictability, consistency, stable, and secure caregivers and environments. So these individuals who are deemed have avoidant attachment relationship styles, these individuals' presentation is you're very independent, there's emotional distancing. Why? Because you had inconsistent or unavailable caregivers, and we're not blaming anyone, okay? So this is another thing I want to say. In childhood, and you have, in general, have a really hard time trusting and relying on others. All right, so here's some characteristics. Emotional distance, you have difficulty with all types of intimacy, you are extremely independent. You are dismissive of relationships, so sometimes, you don't think relationships are important to you, or you don't need close relationships. So what's the actual impact on relationships? You are uncomfortable with being emotionally close to someone, really anyone, right? This isn't just personal. You have difficulty expressing emotions. You feel like you're going to be abandoned. All right. Last but not least is the anxious. And I'm just going to say, because I'm open to revealing anything at this point about myself. So I am someone who has worked on a lot, for those of you who know me as someone with an anxious attachment style. All right, so what's the general presentation here? You are characterized by fear of abandonment. You have a strong need, though, on the other end to have closeness and reassurance. And what is this? Again, it is inconsistent or unpredictable early childhood caregiving style. So what is the key characteristics? Fear of abandonment, need for reassurance. You are clingy and could be dependent on others rather than yourself. You might have a hard time with trusting, low self-esteem, you people please, you can get jealous and possessive, and you have poor boundaries. So again, inconsistent or unpredictable caregiving, trauma or neglect. How is this impacting relationships? You can, right, have difficulty with intimacy. There is relationship instability, and sometimes have difficulty with relationships in general. Okay, so this is another monster, Dr. Tavrashi, another monster slide.
Trish, real
Yeah.
quick, can I just add something to the last slide?
Oh,
Real
okay.
quick. So sorry. Attachment, just because I always love when you and I talk about how the cultural considerations and the norms that you mentioned at the end, how those play into it. Something that's important for us to remember is that these attachments might look different across different cultures. All right. What what one culture might see as secure or nurturing, another culture might view it as over-involved or distant.
Yes.
And so for TCKs who grow up between those cultural norms, it can create some confusion on how to connect and express emotions or seek support because they're trying to navigate multiple models of what love looks like. They may have internalized mixed messages leading to that insecure, that disorganized attachment pattern. Even if the caregivers, again, as Trish mentioned, might have had the best of intentions, and understanding those cultural nuances that can be a key to also supporting TCKs and developing their emotional safety, security.
Yes, thank you so much, Brandon. Yeah, so it really all depends, but the point here is how it affects you and your relationships, you as a person, personally and professionally. So this is just one way The other thing too is that, which I'm not going to really go into, but there is such a thing as place attachment. So there is a place attachment theory where there is an emotional or affective bond to a place. All right. And that actually can impact mental health and wellness as well. All right. So moving on to this. This is across the lifespan, the developmental periods, and what I call the relationship milestones. Well, so what should be happening, right, to ensure healthy relationships and healthy relationship development. All right. So as I mentioned to you before, as someone who is an early interventionist, 0 to 3, this is the time by 3 years old where those relationship patterns with your primary caregivers have been set. Okay. In addition to some of us who have already also moved around. So there's predictability or lack of thereof, consistency, security, and safety. So what will be really important during this time, right, with using all the senses and actually across all childhood is to be able to communicate, right, to communicate, parents or caregivers to be able to communicate to their children all the changes that are happening based on what they understand developmentally, right? Like you wouldn't be explaining like, okay, we're moving to England to a teen the same way you would be doing that with an infant, right? So there could be pictures with an infant, there could be a transitional object like the smell of their nanny, something like that, that then would provide that predictability, consistency, security, and safety. So those 4 things continue all across the lifespan. However, when we move now into early childhood, where a lot of children want to be autonomous, initiate, and want to have the capacity to discuss some of these things, and they're in school, you are now including then their community, their school system, to then be able, right, in unison, to be able to communicate. How are we going to continue with all these moves, predictability, consistency, security, and safety in place with people and with things? As we move forward in the middle to late childhood, they initiate things, right? If they feel secure, they're industrious, they feel competent. So all of those things, giving them opportunity to do that. But when they keep on moving during this time, like this is when I moved to London. I mean, I moved to a whole bunch of places in the United States, but continued conversations about this so they don't feel like leaving their friends makes them feel incompetent, that they will never have friends again. As we turn from the teen years all across adulthood now, the teen years is so significant because you're going from a child to an adult. All the relationship patterns, if we think about attachment, right, and those styles have now been set, and consciously or unconsciously, you can continue those patterns for good or bad. So you are now thinking of yourself as a teen outside in the world, as now an emerging adult, and trying to figure that out. As then we move on to young adulthood, intimacy, maybe first, significant relationships are happening, maybe seeing those relationship patterns. And there is such a thing called an adult attachment inventory. And there are also questionnaires where it is a whole bunch of questions, some of them on a Likert scale and things like that, in our work in the profession that I have used to identify what type of attachment style that you have. As we move on to middle adulthood, you can see, right, there could be thinking about our entire life, a reconciliation of what that means for us, hopefully, right, with that predictability, consistency, security, and as late adults, then it becomes a life review. So how can we reconcile a lot of this stuff? Self-awareness is number 1. Like even if you don't know your attachment style, knowing how you show up in a relationship is really important, whether or not you go to therapy or you don't go to therapy. Building, so that's number 1. Number 2, building communion with other people, right? Like the TCK community is also really important in terms of having lived experiences and validating our experiences. And then number 3 is communication. So Brandon and I, we were laughing when we were practicing this presentation because I remember Brandon and I have done 5 presentations now on this topic. And I remember when I felt comfortable with Brandon, and I'm like, you know what, Brandon, like I didn't say this directly to him, but I go, you know, I trust you. I think this is going to go well. We've been doing this for a while, but I said to him, Brandon, you know, well, I don't know, Brandon, if I said this directly to you, but you know, I get anxious if like I am planning something and we're supposed to be planning something together as a pair,
Yeah.
and you know, and I don't hear from you, right? And things like that, and the reason why. So I told him a whole bunch of things. And so now, because I expressed my needs and my wants, we are working towards, right, having a secure working relationship, so we can work towards that security. Brandon, you want to say anything about that?
It made me think about as I was looking at the slides, I was like, ugh, middle adulthood. This is not fun. But when you were talking about reconciliation, I'm the opposite. I'm the person that if you want to talk to me, you're gonna have to reach out. You're gonna have to ask me a direct question to let me know what you want, because it's not that I don't care about these things. It's just that there are other things happening. So I'm more direct with these sort of things. So when we started working together, there was this almost imbalance where Trish would check in to make sure that I'm still in it. And then I'd be like, yes, we're fine. We're good. Go away. Beat it. And having to understand each other, having to
But
understand.
you realize I mean, not that you showed me any distrust.
Mhm.
And I have to work on that constantly on myself, right? Because you can't expect the other person to do all the work, even if you tell them your wants and needs. Just because you say, oh yeah, I know my attachment style. Oh yeah, these are my wants and needs. But that's unfair for the, even if you say that, doesn't mean, okay, this is for everybody, doesn't mean in these relationships that I expect Brandon to carry everything, right? And it's even more maximized when you're moving around to all of these different places and communities, and you're trying to navigate and figure out everybody's communication style. So because I've done all of this work for on myself, I am now able to say these things to people who I feel like trust and understand me. But so when I do that, we can now laugh at each other, and Brett is like, Trish, I'm here.
Yeah.
Right. And that calms me down. That calms me down when someone's like, Trish, I'm still here. Nothing has changed. Right. Because in my
Yep.
upbringing, I love my dad, I love my mom and everyone, but the inconsistency affected how I showed up in relationships. Like one day I'm in New York, another day I'm moving 3 months later to Texas. So it's like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. So that's how it could also look like in real life. So we're gonna go ahead.
For me, real quick, it's the complete opposite. The way that I grew up, things were so consistent, um, with family, with friends, that the check-ins, they weren't a thing for us. It was, we knew the person was there. We knew that they would be there, inshallah, of course. We knew that they would be there, but there wasn't the need to check in. When I lived overseas, I had to set an alarm to call my mom every now and then, because I know that even though I might be thinking about her at a particular time, it might not push me to call at that moment. I might be busy, and then the thought's gone. Doesn't mean that we don't have a strong relationships. That's just how in my family we've always been. If you need something, call. If you don't, pray everything's okay, and keep it moving. And there are things that I've had to reconcile with that too, because that's not, I'm not going to go and say that that's the best way to build the relationships, but that's something that I had to be transparent with. Also with Trish, when we started working together, you might not hear from me uh, for a
No,
couple of
that's
days.
true.
I'm still here, and if you need something, just reach out. Just tell me, hey, I want to talk. Hey, let's do this, and I'm here for it. I can drop what I need to do and get in that, because I will understand that that's what you need. So as Trish said, that communication about our attachment styles, that communication about how we not only build relationships, but how we navigate them, are going to be really important.
I'm very glad that I'm going to interrupt. I'm very glad you did this live interaction, knowing that both of you have moved, and you're really in real life, you're showing what was your attachment style in the past. You have moved. Where did it bring?
Yeah, moved.
And how is that interaction showing up? And the beauty of it is, because you both understand it, in which way, instead of getting overwhelmed by each other, or getting it worse, or conflicts coming in, or maybe running away from each other, that maybe this partnership is not good, because you understand it, which I'm hoping this is going to be under the understanding of the general population, then we can feed each other's needs to a reasonable way. Again, not being needy, but there is a need, there's an understanding, there's a recognition to build that security, but not latch on each other at the same. So thank you so much for this.
Yeah. So anyway, I know we're running out of time, and there's going to be some closing remarks. So again, here are some questions now as a grown-up, okay? Because what I found in my work, in my clinical work, where a lot of the work is really working on, like the child, Trish, for example, like working on that, right? Working on the child within ourselves to try to figure out how we show up and our impact in relationships, just like how Brennan and I sort of demonstrated this, for health, right? For our own mental health and our own relational health. So here are the questions. Describe how you were seen, heard, and understood. How do you say hello and goodbye with people, place, and things? How do you provide for yourself? Remember, we're not expecting everyone else in the world to do it for us, right? That's external validation. We're doing it for ourselves too. Safety, security, predictability, and consistency. And when others don't meet your expectations or you have ambivalent feelings, what do you do? And how would you like to change, or what is preventing you from change? All right, so we would like to also highlight in our resources some of our new colleagues, it seems. We have Megan Norton, we have Matthew Gagon here with, and Andrea Schmidt, who has a research podcast. So these are other ways of looking at the TCKA population. Ruth Van Ryken, and then what is considered the TCKA Bible in the 3rd edition, Van Ryken, Pollock, and Pollock. So, and these are our references, some of our references here. And our contact information. And here's some pictures of us as grown-ups together. In the Middle East, here in the Middle East, when we presented our work on TCKAs at the 6th Annual Middle East Psychological Association Conference and Expo. And this, I was presenting on something else at Montclair State University, and we were able to meet each other there in New York. No, New Jersey.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm gonna read one of the questions here. Thank you for mentioning attachment to place as well. The fact that human memory is context dependent, including the physical environment. I believe this is a big deal in understanding how TCKs can feel lost in general. That is, not being able to use elements in the physical environment around them as retrieval cues to key core memories. Thought about this?
It's funny, I was just writing my response to the question because I saw it earlier. But in a nutshell, I was saying that it's really important when we're talking about attachments to place, because if we're losing these places, the cues that we have to bring back memories, they won't be there anymore. There are certain places that we come across that, will spur a memory from childhood. There are times that I'm walking around the city in places that I didn't think I had ever been, and then I remember something, and I might call my mom or brother, "Have we ever gone there?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, we used to go there all the time when you were kids," and I'm like, I lost it. So, Trish, I know that you can speak more on this when we talk about. I know that you mentioned attachment to place specifically.
Yeah. So there's a whole. Yeah, so it's related to attachment theory to people, but it's very similarly that we can, depending on the context, right? That we are attached to place for great things and not great things. And that could lead to trauma, right? That could also lead to anything that are positive things, but it's a memory, and our understanding and, self-awareness of what that memory of the place actually invokes in us, our feelings, and then how we place it in our general life, right? I mean, how that works.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I'd like to share something by experience. One time we were moving to one of the many different countries that we moved to, and we have 3 kids. So there was, at that time, I wasn't studying psychology. So there was the company was offering counselors, to kind of navigate some of these moves and how it is. So she suggested, she knew that it's not easy for one of our boys to move. She actually gave a stone.
Oh, yes.
And that was very important. And doing that, I don't know if that was something that came to my mind or whatever. Because I don't go back home often. So I'm going to show this because I want everybody to have a visual.
Yeah, so when I mean, there's attachment to a lot of things. It's not just,
Back home,
it's a thing. Yeah.
It's a thing. So you can be there, you bring something, or even as simple as,
Yes.
and I want you to have a visual.
Mm-hmm.
Dry grass of a place, maybe.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everywhere we moved, nobody can touch this. I have to put it in a plastic bag, and I bring this one for me. So it's
Yeah, and you know what that is?
Oh my God.
It's called a transitional object, which is a 0 to 3, where it's like like a person or a thing or a place is like a blankie, like the comfort of whatever home. And what I do, a lot of my friends know this, I buy jewelry. I
And
buy jewelry,
Oh, great.
right? So look, like, okay,
Mariam,
so this is my, little
uh,
jewelry thing. So
Mariam, I think that I should also give you some presentation when you come to see me. So you will remember me for a long time. I hope it's so. Just like you're remembering,
yes,
somebody gave you a stone or any other object, so you still remember that one. So I
yes,
wish So I wish that I should also give you some presentation so that you may
yes,
remember.
definitely. I think Dr. Gulz, Dr. Ahmad, it's important because these little things we never think about it.
Yes, of course. Yes, of
What you
course.
see here, again, this is from back home, and I want to show it. And this is,
Yeah,
for me, this is all value based because I went
great. Yes, I understand.
actually,
Yes,
I went and picked it from the
I,
city of Pasargad,
yes,
where
yes,
the
right.
human rights was written in my
Yes,
country 2,500 years ago. So it's all,
oh,
everything we work with, my
of course.
value, part of who I am, and
Okay,
also from back
okay,
home.
okay, okay, okay.
So
That indicates that the physical environment and the objects are also very important in TCKs and while we are developing in everybody's life even. The environment, physical environment as well as social and cultural environment is also very, very important. So we
yes,
cannot forget that one. That is sort of our, you can say, our early childhood memories, which are written on like a clean slate and that linger on for a long period of time. But at the same time, I would like to wind up this discussion that, as Dr. Perez has and his student, Brendan Kerr, have given a very good presentation, and it has stimulated many, many questions in the minds of audience and in myself. So I think this is the success of any presentation that when you able to instigate so many questions in people's mind. So anyhow, there's not enough time now, but just like I have to say a few words of many thanks and congratulations to the presenters and the hosts. And finally, just my small observation is that, these early childhood experiences, and even when we are in the multicultural aspects, living in different cultures, we do remember many things as even small stones, objects, people around. And this is, our mind is just like a computer. And whenever it is one trigger is there, we open up many memories are there. So just we, as being psychologists, we all know that early childhood experiences are very, very important in everybody's life, as just said by Freud and many others as well. But at the same time, though they do have repercussions, even in marital life, even in the later life, even in the old adulthood stages, and we remember sometimes the old events. So at the same time, it is said that people are resilient as well. Human beings are very much resilient. They cope up with many difficulties, traumas, difficulties, situations, and even they come out of that, as we have seen. Even the TCKs, there are many examples that though you have rightly indicated that they might come across some cultural difficulties, interpersonal relationship, anxiety or depression, alienation, and so many other things, rootlessness of feelings, detachment, etc. But at the same time, we have seen many TCKs, especially adults who have migrated in other countries, and they have risen very high. And I've seen in my own observation as that when people migrate, they tend to do something more activity to for the adjustment in a new culture, and where the striving and struggling to adjust themselves to the new cultures, they go on and go on. They exceed the local culture people as well, so they go very high. Even in you can see many even heads of the states in US and UK as well, and many other countries as well. So anyhow, we need to understand that the human beings are resilient as well. Finally, just I want to add something that, as you mentioned, the cultural aspect. So Greek Hofstede's theory of cultural dimension is also, I think, a very important theory, where six dimensions that has been mentioned as power distance, individualism and collectivism, uncertainty avoidance, and masculinity, femininity, long-term distance, and short-term orientation, and indulgence versus restraint, etc. So this topic your Dr. Patricia has presented is really actually very complex topic, and we need to understand it in a holistic approach. And this difficult to catch up even this aspect, but is a very important thing in the present day world, that people are migrating from place to place because of different cultural, social, economic reasons here and there, and this is integral part of almost everybody's life. And we need to understand more and more about this topic. And I think that is why we can say that we need counseling, we need multicultural education and understanding, and we need to understand more and more about other people for better adjustment of the kids and adults, the parents, and all living together in peace and harmony, and for the global welfare. I think this is very important, and thank you again for everyone. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so much
much.
again. Thank you, Dr. Perez. Thank you, Brandon. Just a wonderful presentation,
Okay.
well needed. And
Yes, of course.
I'm grateful you created the 2 slides of questions, because I'm going to personally go deeper think. I'm going to put time, and
Yeah, I put the slides. Yeah, I put the slides in the chat for everyone.
thank you so much.
I
And,
think
everybody, the link is ready, that it will be ready later for you. You can go to our website and watch it, and it's also on the YouTube. And thank you so much for everybody being here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you,
Yes,
everyone.
okay,
As
thank
chair of the
you.
webinar committee, I must say this was very exciting,
Yes,
very
yes, yes.
stimulating, and we look forward to more of this kind. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
just finally, I would say one sentence, that people who want to join our group, they are welcome to join our group, which is known as Human Rights, Peace, and Global Wellbeing under Division 52.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye. Have a
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Mhm.